Special spotlight on local artists series. We have 2 artists.
Yay.
To Do It Yourself Sis. I'm Monet.
I'm Yama.
So today we have a really special spotlight on local artists series. We are interviewing 2 artists today. They are 2 amazing airbrush artists. They do amazing work.
Yes. They not only did airbrush, they did graffiti. They have classroom experience as well as fine art background. So this is a very well-rounded interview here.
Guys, make sure you subscribe and like this video,
as well as comment on the video so we can have a lot of feedback from our audience as to what you all are interested in. So without any further ado, let's go talk to our artist. Street art was what you started doing. You grew up in the hip hop era, the breakdancing and DJing and everything. I know it was just so carefree back then.
Right.
So what was your tag?
Oh, my tag name was Smack. Everybody called me Smack, S-M-A-C-K. The S is superior, the M is masterful, the A is artful, and the C is creative, and the K is king. Yeah, and I just wanted to see my tag everywhere because it was part of that whole hip-hop graffiti culture.
As a graffiti artist, was it easy for you to transition from graffiti to airbrush?
Once I was introduced to the airbrush reminded me of a smaller version of a spray paint can. So instead of me putting the work on the walls, I'm like, wow, I can do this a little bit more micro and start creating it on smaller things like t-shirts and all. Being as though that I was self-taught, I would just practice and practice until my skills got really perfected.
Currently in your work or past in your work, when you started getting into the more traditional acrylic scents and things like that, were you mixing mediums?
Then that was very interesting and very experimental. Just like I said, just getting back to the fun, freedom of creative experimentation, art fusion. You know, like sometimes we would have an acrylic painted background, but then we might just add the airbrush stencil of a butterfly, of a flower. And then on top of that, we might take some airbrush paint and then just splash it on top. Another medium we would use would be wood. We would do some wood. We would airbrush on the wood, and then we would get some the plastic, almost like the flexible plexiglass. Sometimes we would just do some airbrush the background on the plexiglass just to give it a tint, and then sometimes you just sharpen your marker to write inside of the wood. And then we'll just put that plexiglass on top of it, and then you got a nice tint. So we experiment with a whole lot of stuff.
And having the children being introduced to these different types of techniques definitely rounds them out as an artist.
Yes. You only have like an hour of teaching time. So you want to make sure that all of the students get a chance to really, really do their thing. And it's a little bit of speed, there's a lot of fun, and they're just learning hands-on work, you know what I mean? And just the experience of them coming at first, not feeling like participating, then working and getting in the mix, and then you have to put them out because they don't want to leave at the end, you know what I mean? So that's the fun part about educating the youth and having them gravitate to doing something new and different.
Like current events or things that's going on in Philadelphia, do you feel like those topics kind of make you want to make art?
Current events is sometimes an inspirational starting point for creating some art in terms of making a statement dealing with social justice. Like you had the Breonna Taylor, the George Floyd, the Trayvon Martin. It's just these things that kind of touches you. Use art or airbrushing as a creative voice to kind of speak out to somebody. I mean, I think it's a little bit more powerful and much more impactful, and also dealing with the gun violence. I get a lot of people that come in that want memorial t-shirts and stuff. And my whole thing is, I do a lot of memorial pictures, and my goal is to create this art piece of their loved one and make it look so, realistic. Like, I want to bring you as close as I can back to your loved one in a visual, spiritual form. So if you see your mom, it's almost as if you're looking at her, and all of the memories and stuff just touches you. And sometimes a lot of the clients get very emotional, So social justice issues, I do that along with my students. We'll talk about a topic, and then we'll begin to start jotting down some type of words. And then we start to create, and it also generates conversation. And you'll be surprised how much our youth know and are aware about the social injustice that's happening. Art is one of the best universal languages without having to speak language. You know what I mean? Language is art, you know what I mean? And art is pretty much life. Everything that you see, do, and eat, it had to have been drawn out first. You had to draw it out to even, you know what I mean, to visualize it. So that's life. Art is life.
So can you tell me what your early years of art was like?
Early years of art, it was back in junior high, I say, and scribbling, not paying attention in class. And I was drawing comic books for my classmates because that was my little side hustle. And then I would take those and run downstairs to the office and make photocopies of it and then sell it in school.
From after junior high and the comic book, how did you get here? What was that transition?
Graduated high school. And my mom says, well, if you really want to do this art thing, you got to do it right. You got to go to a good school, because good artists have to go to a good school to get a good reputation. And she paid for my tuition to go to Tyler. It felt normal, it felt comfortable, but I felt out of place. And then the teachers just added insult to that by saying, well, art is more of a lifestyle. It's not really a career. You got to understand that, you're doing this for the love of the art. And you may not make a good living at it, but you'll enjoy the pleasures of doing great fine art. I started cutting class and doing research on how I can take this art and make some money. And I started to learn that in another form of art called advertising and design, you can make a living, a good living, have a good life, and still be able to do your fine art on the side. I found out that the school called Hushin School of Art was having for the art competition, won a scholarship, a short scholarship, just for a semester. And I decided to transfer over there. So on my way home from one of my jobs, I went to the Gallery Mall, and I saw this guy airbrushing. And it just caught my eye right away because it was amazing. He was airbrushing 5 cartoon characters on a plate about this big. And the detail was amazing because in art school, you use the airbrush only as a tool. You take a stencil and you hold it up and then you spray in between that shape and then you get a design. It was never used to make pictures of things and lettering and things. It was never even taught to be used like that. So I asked him if he would teach me. No. He said, no, that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to make money. Every day after work, I would go by and stand in front of the window and try and pick up by how he moved his hands, how he moved his eyes, how his body language, to try to learn as much as I could. And because I had the fine art background, I could really pick up on a lot of things just by watching. Mm-hmm. So I went home, practiced, got good. The next day, a couple days later, I think it was, and He says, look, you gotta stay from in front of the shop, man. You're blocking customers' view. And I said, well, I gotta learn this, man. I got to, you know? And he says, I'll tell you what, you come inside, clean up the equipment at the end of the day, I'll teach you. And I says, deal, I'll do that. Came, cleaned up the equipment. And what I didn't know is, and it's a philosophy I started to travel no matter what job I had after that. I made it a point to, no matter where you go, something good is going to come out of it that you can use in the future. Even though he made me clean up his equipment, I learned something that helped me later on, which was how to break down those airbrush guns and put them back together again. He had a bucket full of old broken up guns that had paint fused in them, and I learned how to take them apart, clean them out, and remake the guns. It was the most valuable lesson in my life that really carried over, because after dealing with Bill, I actually landed a good art job.
When you first started to meet JT and the other guys, was that around the early 2000s? You know, that's when the airbrushing was like...
Yeah, it was very early 2000s, and his shop was crowded, and he had a crew that had a specialty in each different type of t-shirt airbrush art. They had a specialty in it, and I really admired that. And when we first met, I came in there, yo, you guys are really good. And I was like, 'cause in the back of my mind, I was like, 'cause my friends told me that, nah, ain't no good artist out in West Philly. And I'm like, you crazy, these boys is hot.
Listen now, I'm from West, I'm a little biased.
That made me mad. I'm like, they the baddest boys I ever seen. He says, you got a card? Because he was working, you know, he was trying to get that money. Right. And I said, yeah, I got a card, and I gave him my card. And he was like, yo, dog, look at this. This is a nice card, man. Where'd you get this done at? And I said, no, I made them. Can you make me some? And I said, sure, man, I'll be back a couple days. So I went, made him some cards, and that's how our friendship began from that point. I'd call him from time to time, he'd call me. But at that time, I was at Franklin Mills. And while up there, I learned a new skill. And this was the skill that really was the moneymaker for me, which was speed. And I learned shortcuts on how to do portraits from sketching. I learned how to take the techniques from watercoloring from school, from art school, and how to use the blurred designing techniques of fine art to make portraits faster and more efficiently. Wow, when we finally decided to get up out of the malls, I felt more like I was more of a master of my craft than before, because before I felt like I was still learning.
You know, something like this, how long would that normally take you?
Each face is about 30 minutes. I actually think I knocked it down to about 3 hours, to be honest. Even though it looks highly detailed, like I said, the fine art background, in doing watercolors, they teach you squint your eye. And what you see when you squint your eye, that's how you lay down your foundation. Okay. So the foundation is a light wash of detail. Mm-hmm. It's not sharp at all. But that light wash adds in such subtleties that the human eye picks it up. Brain tells you this is a person, but it's not a person at all. It's just shapes. Like for instance, his face is elongated, it's an oval. So I just make an oval. His eyes are more ovaled here. I make an oval. Yeah, got round circles in here. It's just shapes. Here's a triangle here. I made a triangle. Those subtle shapes and then come back and grow on those shapes. I make a dash. If you look real close, it just looks like a bunch of blurred shapes. But it's the distance. You have to find your sweet spot in your distances where the human mind says, that's hot.
So you guys, I just wanted to say thank you so much for this wonderful interview.
Oh, no, thank you.
We really do appreciate it. So can you guys tell everybody your social media handle?
You can follow me on Instagram at Airbrush Education. That's the educational page. And you can also find my business page, All City 5.
For me, you can follow my website at topdogairbrush.com and Instagram at topdogairbrush.
Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment for more videos.
Bye, y'all.